All right, so we are on, and thank you for tuning in. And as you can see by the title, um, everybody wonders, or everybody that I talk to or meet with, wonders how the hell SurRon gets 70, 80 miles an hour speeds. Well, folks, it's very simple, and if you want to find out how, you gotta stick around to the end of the video, I guess, or throughout the entire video as we speak about it. So, if you look at my channel, I do have radio control cars of 1/10 scale, 1/8 scale, and 1/5 scale. Now, why am I mentioning that? I'm mentioning that because these cars, they operate on gears. All right, so they have the motor and they have the spare gear. Now, what that does is it changes the ratio of the gears, right? So, and I'm going to be quick about it because I don't want another 30-minute video. But for you to find out how SurRon gets all this speed, which is 72 volt, not even 94 volt battery with 150 amps pushing, not even 300 amps, and even if that. So the radio control cars have gear ratio. Now, if you notice, us, the stealth bombers and all the do-it-yourself rear brushless wheels, we don't have gears, and we do not have control of our gear ratio. I mean, yeah, in reality, we can go bigger on a wheel, and that will make us go faster, and smaller in a wheel on the back, that would give us a better torque. So, for example, my bike has a 19-inch wheel, and therefore it gives me a good torque. Now, why did I do 19-inch wheel on my bike instead of, let's say, 24, right? Because 26, you can't get 26 in a motorcycle tire. You could probably still get 24, definitely 21, but 24 in a motorcycle tire, including the tire itself. So the rim probably would be like 21, and it would be 2 inches of a tire, right? So that would equal to a 24-inch tire. So in regards to that, right? You want to go faster. You have bigger wheels. You want to have more torque. Unfortunately, loose top speed. You're gonna have small wheels, right? So my motor is, again, I'm gonna mention this again, non-brand motor. It's assembled in China, wind up in China, and it's not a QS motor. It's nothing fancy whatsoever, but it does its job. You know, the purpose of it is to spin and to work and not overheat. So since my motor is brushless and I don't have gears and I have no way of changing gears, I am actually at a 3.5 turn on that wheel. So let's say if I picked 5 or 6, my top speed will be gone and my torque will be ridiculous. So probably from 50 miles an hour, I will go down probably 30, but I will be ripping like crazy going up and down the hills. But again, we talked about this, and my choice for my build was street use, and kind of like not necessarily top speed, but I set up aiming for 50, and I'm able to hit the 50, and I'm very happy with that. Again, mind you that I am a 250-pound individual, and when I was doing the testing, it was very windy and I was against the wind, which, believe it or not, when you do 50 miles an hour, the wind resistance makes a huge difference in your performance at the end of the run. So now we have mentioned the brushless motors, right? We're not going to do a mid drive because that just right now it's not irrelevant, but we're speaking more about SurRon, right? Because everybody buys or installs mid drive because they want the torque and they want to go off-road on the trails, right? So we already established that we're not gonna take a 150 or 200-pound bike off-road on the trails, because we'll probably end up killing ourselves or falling off the cliff and getting injured. So that's not what we're speaking about. So again, let's go back to SurRon, right? I see all these videos on YouTube, and guys in LA doing 65, 68, 72, 74, and I've seen some guys with brushless motors doing the same thing, 64, 68. It's just here's the fact: in order for brushless motor to reach 70 miles an hour, that battery has to be a beast. Usually when the battery is a beast, it has amp hours, its capacity very poor. So you might be, let's say, at 30. I've seen one guy at 20, but that wasn't on the stealth bomber. That was kind of like light bike. I think it was a BMX conversion, so that came out pretty decent. But again, with a 20 amp hour, you can't get a huge distance. So let's say hypothetically the guy's pushing 150 amps. It seems like everybody's pushing 150. In a peak operation, he'll put out 300, 400 amps, which is a lot. However, we will need that for brushless motor. There's one other guy that has a YouTube channel, and he was doing 70, but he did do-it-yourself battery out of big fat cells, not the 1850s or 18 whatever they called. So he had big fat cells that the discharge wasn't 1C, was actually 2C. So that was already double all the power, and it was 2800 milliamps. So that's 2.8 amps discharge on the battery by 2C. So it's pretty big build, and his build was 49 or 48 amp hours, which is pretty good. It's on that top end. Like I said, mine is 50, and I consider that to be top end. And again, that was how you would succeed reaching 70 miles an hour, by putting big fat cells and big Silverton running 150 amps and a peak to 250. So moving forward towards the SurRon, the only way SurRon gets its speed is because of the gear ratio. If you notice, the SurRon has a gear in a mid drive, and also has a spare gear in the back wheel. So and this is physics. If you are, let's say, if you go, let's just do it very easily, explain to you guys very easily, right? If you go small in a front gear, and you go big in a rear spur gear, your ratio is going to make it where you have a lot of torque and the top speed is low. So again, small in the front, big in the back, you get crazy torque. And that's how SurRon is able to wheelie and get the 30-mile speed an hour, and still at 30 miles an hour be able to wheelie the 120-pound bike, whatever it weighs. Also, that's possible at 60 amp, and it's also possible at 72. It is easy at 72, but again, if you change the rear spare gear, you are going to have a huge torque. Again, small in the front, big in the back, right? Now, let's say in the front, probably you're doing maybe 8 tooth in the front. So now, if you were, let's say, I've heard people doing 54 teeth or 54 tooth spare gear in the back. I think I've seen as high as 64, which was ridiculous. He was just ripping the entire gravel and grass and bushes and whatnot. But if you were to, let's say, keep your front gear at whatever it is. Let's say hypothetically, for our purpose, it will be 8 tooth, and you had original, let's say, spur gear would be at 54, and you brought that to, let's say, 34. I believe you'll be able to hit 100 miles an hour because you've changed your gear ratio. Now the only question is if your motor will be able to take that abuse. I've noticed that when you have a high torque, your motor usually takes the abuse. What I mean by taking an abuse is by heating up very quickly. So you can burn your motor extremely quickly by messing around with the gear ratios. So I don't recommend that unless you know what you're doing. And of course, there's a calculator for gear ratio on the internet. You can Google it, and it will tell you how many tooth you should have at a front gear, and how many tooth should you have in the rear to accomplish whatever speed it equals to, right? So not hypothetically, but out of my own experience in the radio control car industry, okay, I was able to do 34 tooth on the front gear and 34 tooth on the rear gear, and my radio control car that was 10 scale with skid tires would hit 98 miles pretty much on the first run, and of course when the tires warm up I was able to hit 119, 124. But these are the extreme speeds. If we were to physically put those speeds down onto a pavement with a 100-pound electric bike like SurRon, it will be a little bit dangerous. At a free spin, this ratio of a gear would not have a problem to hit 100 miles an hour. So anyway, just to finish this video, we'll make it nice and short. If you want to do high speeds with SurRon, don't go with the 54. Let's say go with the 45. You gotta play in between. Of course, it costs a pretty penny to change the spare gears for SurRon in the rear, because they nicely crafted, and you got to pay for the labor, for material and everything else. But if you have an access to a spare gear, let's say your friend has one or wants to kind of sell it off, if I had a SurRon, I will go from the smallest one, which would be probably 40, and 20 tooth. If I was going from 40 to 60 or from 60 to 40, 20 tooth can make a huge difference. Again, that's my experience. That's what I know. It's been experimented by me on the radio control cars, which is the same concept. Again, if you Google gear ratio versus speed, you'll be able to match your speed. And if you have somebody that could build a spur gear for you for SurRon, or you want to weld it all together, or whatever it is that you want, I've seen spur gears that look like a UFO, meaning it will look like a dish. And I've seen spare gears like I do on SurRons, very nicely crafted, great looks, light in the weight, and it works either or. But if anybody will experiment, or is going to experiment, or half experiment, please let me know down below. How low were you able to go on your spare gear in the back? Was it 40? Was it 35? Was it 50? Whatever it was. And what speed did you get at what battery? Alright folks, I gotta get out of here because I got traffic, and there's just cars everywhere, and I don't want to get in a car accident. So until then folks, take care. Make sure you wear your gear, stick around and share.